The United States military likes to pride itself on having the most cutting-edge technology, in everything from 5th-generation stealth fighters to precision-guided bombs and artillery shells to stealth ships and autonomous drone ships in development. The United States boasts the world's most technologically advanced and capable armed forces. However, many of the systems currently used in the US military are surprisingly old, sometimes as old as 100 years. Other weapons and platforms that were introduced decades ago have proven so effective that they will reach the century mark. What other weapons and equipment does the United States military currently use that is of a venerable nature? Let's take a look and find out. First up would be the 50 caliber M2 Browning machine gun, nicknamed Ma-Deuce. The machine gun was designed by the famous firearms designer John Browning near the end of World War I. The demand for a new, heavier machine gun came from General John Pershing, the commander of America's forces in the war, who observed that the United States lacked a heavy enough machine gun to use against German planes. Pershing passed the memo to John Browning, who redesigned his M1917 30 caliber machine gun for a bigger round, the 50 caliber Browning machine gun round. The Allies defeated Germany too early for the M2 to see service during the war, but with a few more modifications, the United States military adopted it in the 1930s. It has an effective range of 1,800 meters and a maximum range of 7,400 meters. Since its adoption, the M2 Browning has been put onto other platforms almost everywhere in the US Armed Forces, no matter the service branch. American fighters and bombers in World War II and later were armed with it. The machine gun comes on the Navy's ships as well. The M2 machine gun has also been the secondary armament on tanks ranging from the Shermans to the Abrams. Many other light vehicles and aircraft also mount this machine gun. Infantry units also use it on a tripod, where it's ideal for defending positions. In some cases, this weapon has even been used as a sniper rifle. One of the most famous American snipers, Carlos Hathcock, used it to set a 35-year record for the longest-range sniper kill ever recorded, when he neutralized a Viet Cong guerrilla from a range of over 2,500 yards with his modified M2 Browning. The Ma-Deuce comes with rounds that are as varied as the platforms it is installed on. These include M33 anti-personnel ball rounds that are also good against light material targets, tracer rounds, the M8 armor-piercing incendiary, the M20 armor-piercing incendiary tracer, and light armor penetration rounds capable of punching through 1.34 inches of steel at a range of up to 500 meters. The M2 Browning may be a century old, but its combination of versatility, range, and stopping power has proven difficult to replace despite its heavy weight of 84 pounds. One attempt, the XM806, failed after a 3-year trial between 2009 and 2012. Another attempt, the lightweight medium machine gun program, featuring a 25-pound frame and a long-range .338 caliber round, is seeing some interest among the military brass. Regardless, don't expect the Ma-Deuce to be disappearing from the American military arsenal anytime soon. The M2 machine gun is the second longest serving firearm in American military history. The longest is another Browning brainchild, the legendary M1911 Colt 45 caliber pistol. This weapon was the standard sidearm for the US military from World War I to the middle of the 1980s, when it was replaced by the 9mm M9 Beretta as part of NATO ammunition standardization procedures. However, that was not the end of the Colt 45 story. Over 110 years after it was first introduced into service, the M1911 and its variants still see service with some special operations units. The M1911 began as an attempt by the US Army to replace the revolvers in its arsenal with a semi-automatic sidearm. The Army's experience in the Philippines fighting a guerrilla war against the Moros strengthened its conviction that the old service revolvers needed to go, as reports from the front found they failed miserably against Moro attackers and in the extreme jungle environment that was the Philippines. The Army wanted a semi-automatic pistol with a bigger round, a 45 caliber. The pistol had to be reliable too, reliable enough to survive in environments like the Army had experienced in the Philippines. 6 companies signed up for trials, and the Colt model, designed by John Browning, won the day because of its reliability. One trial had a single pistol firing 6,000 rounds. It never jammed in this process, and when it got too hot, it could easily be cooled in water and made ready to fire again. Perhaps the most famous example of its use was in the hands of Alvin York in World War I, who used it as part of his legendary Medal of Honor action in October 1918. This incident saw him use his Colt 45 to shoot 5 German soldiers and an officer, emptying his magazine. He shot them from the back to the front of their formation because he knew that if they saw a comrade in front go down, the others would take cover. This was only one part of an action which saw him kill 25 enemy soldiers and capturing 132 prisoners. In more recent times, operators in the Army's Delta Force unit referred to the Beretta 9mm pistol as a subcaliber device. The M1911 long remained the standard pistol for Delta Force training, with modifications such as a trigger made for a 2-pound pull, flared magazines for faster magazine changes, and ambidextrous thumb controls for safety, slid lock, and magazine release. Delta Force changed to Glock as their standard sidearm in 2008, but some special operators in the US military still use the M1911, a testament to Browning's design and the power of its .45 caliber round. Browning's designs might be legendary and popular through movies and TV, but they aren't the only beloved venerable parts of the US military arsenal. There's also the M1 Carl Gustav recoilless rifle. This weapon, introduced in 1946, remains a key component of anti-armor missions in the US military. The weapon came from a surprising place: the Royal Swedish Arms Administration. Engineers Hugo Abramson and Harold Yintz looked at the handheld anti-tank weapons seen in World War II, such as the American bazooka, British Piat, and German Panzerschreck. They then figured out how they could make improvements on all of these designs. Perhaps the most important improvement that the new weapon made was the addition of a rifled barrel to its launcher. The addition of these grooves inside a barrel adds a stabilizing spin to a projectile in flight, something that gunsmiths figured out as early as the 15th century. However, it was not until the 19th century that this labor-intensive process could be made economical. Despite this knowledge, no one had ever tried it with a rocket-launched anti-material weapon until Abramson and Jeans came along. The use of the rifled barrel in the launcher meant that the rounds from the Carl Gustav did not need to have fins, as seen in earlier portable anti-material weapons like the bazooka. The lack of these devices reduced the weight of the individual rounds, allowing troops to carry more ammunition. The recoilless system also improved the weapon's accuracy. By ejecting countermass from the rear of the weapon, the Carl Gustav negates the effect of recoil on the body, allowing its operators to be more accurate when they aim and fire. The Carl Gustav can accurately hit moving targets up to 400 meters away and stationary targets up to 500 meters. Specialized rounds have longer ranges, with high explosive ammunition capable of hitting targets 1,000 meters away, and rocket-boosted laser-guided rounds at a range of twice that distance. The weapon has a rate of fire of about 6 rounds per minute when operated by a crew of 2, as it was designed to. However, the weapon is versatile and one soldier can also operate the Carl Gustav sufficiently. Its rate of fire slows down in this fashion, but its being capable of operations by one soldier means that it's more reliable in a real-world situation where things will inevitably go wrong. The Carl Gustav is reliable in another way too. It can fire a lot of shots and has a service life of about 1,000 rounds per launcher. The weapon and its ammunition are inexpensive. The launcher costs about $20,000 per unit. Ammunition can cost between $500 and $3,000 per round, depending on which one you order. To put that into perspective, the newer Javelin, which has become famous for its effectiveness against Russian tanks in Ukraine, can cost between $80,000 and $100,000 per shot. And the old Carl Gustav is proving itself there too. The Ukrainian military has used it to destroy some Russian T-90M tanks, one of the most advanced models of the main battle tank deployed into combat. Old, but still effective indeed. The modern version of the Carl Gustav, the M4, was introduced in 2014. Because of its versatility, light weight, about 15 pounds, inexpensive cost and reliability, there are no plans to replace it among the US military brass, meaning it's likely that this weapon will hit the century mark. We can expect to see it in the arsenals of the United States and many of its allies for decades to come. Small arms and light anti-material weapons are not the only venerable objects in the US military's arsenal though. There are objects in the sky that are about as old as the Carl Gustav, and yet also don't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. The first of these old flying planes is the B-52 Stratofortress. First produced in 1952 and introduced into service in 1955, the B-52 comes with a crew of 5. It has a flight ceiling of 50,000 feet, a maximum speed of 650 miles per hour, and a payload capacity of 70,000 pounds. The origin of the B-52 comes mere months after the end of World War II, when the US military brass put out calls for a new bomber. one capable of operating far from home without needing to land in bases in other countries. By not relying on foreign bases for takeoff and landing, the bomber would give the US the ability to strike anywhere in the world. The B-52 came in well ahead of the physical expectations that planners originally set for it. The B-52 was originally designed to be a nuclear-capable bomber as part of the Air Force's Strategic Air Command, the department responsible for two legs in the nuclear triad: the United States airdropped and ICBM-delivered nuclear weapons. The B-52 proved itself fit for this purpose in May of 1956, when it dropped a thermonuclear bomb with a yield of 3.8 megatons, called Cherokee, as part of the Operation Red Wing series of nuclear tests in the Bikini Atoll. The B-52 discontinued its nuclear mission in the 1990s, when it was mechanically altered to make the plane incapable of delivering airdropped nuclear bombs like the B-61 or the B-83. That task has now fallen exclusively to the B-2 Spirit. Still, if need be, the B-52's nuclear capability can be restored. However, the B-52 was also designed to be a platform capable of delivering every conventional bomb in the US military arsenal, a task it fulfilled in the Vietnam War and in the Gulf War, where it played a critical role in neutralizing important Iraqi targets. One mission in the Gulf War involved a group of 7 B-52 bombers flying a 35-hour round-trip mission from their base in Louisiana to the targets in Iraq, and then back. It was the longest aerial combat mission on record at the time, and it was also the first use of the AGM-86C conventional air-launched cruise missile in combat. Modern versions of the B-52 carry on-board sensors that guide bombs to their targets through lasers or other means. Forces on the ground are even capable of linking up with the B-52 to help the planes deliver the bombs to where they want them to be. The B-52 has proven so adaptable and varied in its payload that the brass even called upon it to fly close air support missions in Iraq and Afghanistan during the War on Terror. The B-52 continues to be the most numerous bomber in the United States Air Force's fleet. 2 attempts to replace it failed. The B-1 Lancer proved inadequate to carrying out all of the B-52's tasks, and the B-2 Spirit proved too expensive to manufacture in the numbers that would be needed. It's yet to be determined if the coming B-21 Raider bomber, which is slated to replace the 2 attempted B-52 replacements, will do the same. The Air Force's current plans are for the B-52 to continue flying into the 2050s, meaning that some of these venerable planes will reach the century mark. The great-grandchildren of the original B-52 pilots might well still be flying the same plane, which, depending on how you look at it, is either a mark of the bomber's success or the failure of its intended replacements. Probably a bit of both. But the B-52 isn't the only old plane in the Air Force's fleet. All the firepower in the world would be worthless if it can't be delivered to where it needs to be and when. And for many decades, the United States has relied on a very old plane to perform a large part of this mission. The C-130 Hercules is another plane that's still flying high despite its age. The linchpin of the Air Force's combat airlift fleet, the Hercules was introduced into service in 1956. It has a crew of 3 to 5, a range of 2,000 miles, a maximum speed of 400 miles per hour, and a payload capacity of 44,000 pounds in its latest variant, the C-130J. The Hercules has its origins in the experience of the Korean War, where the World War II-era piston-driven transport planes, which were originally civilian models adapted for military use, proved inadequate in their missions. They couldn't carry the amount of tonnage that the military wanted, and if one of their engines failed, it was a tall order for them to stay in the air when carrying a load. The result was that it took the United States Army 6 weeks to move troops from the homeland to the front in Korea by sea, because the airlift planes did not have the range or payload capacity to support the heavy equipment and armor they would need there. So the Air Force brass came up with the criteria they wanted in a new transport plane. Its ceiling would need to be at least 35,000 feet, with a maximum speed of 280 knots, about 320 miles per hour, and a controllable speed of 125 knots, about 145 miles per hour. For airdrops, the range would need to be 2,000 miles. The plane would also need to reliably carry 15 tons of cargo into dirt strips in case airfields at the front got destroyed. In terms of personnel, the C-130 would need to be able to carry 92 passengers, 72 combat troops, or 64 paratroopers and all of their necessary equipment. The result was the turbine engine-driven C-130. It was the first plane in the Air Force other than fighters and bombers to use turbine instead of piston engines. The new plane fulfilled all of the military's requirements and then some. The Hercules is so versatile that it has even proven capable of landing on an aircraft carrier. Although this is not a common part of its mission, the Hercules achieved this feat between October and November 1963. Lieutenant James H. Flatley III and Lieutenant Commander Walter W. Stovall flew the plane. The carrier Forrestal was the participating ship in the exercises. It remains the record for the largest and heaviest aircraft to ever land on a carrier. It also helps that the Hercules can be turned into an offensive weapon, the AC-130 gunship. The AC-130 first saw service in Vietnam, where it proved itself capable of suppressing enemy logistics, formations, and air defense systems. It's proven an important part of the military's close air support capability in the wars since. The AC-130's armaments include a 25mm Gatling gun, as well as 40 and 105mm cannons. 17 of these planes are still in service as of 2021. The Air Force is currently planning a replacement for the Hercules with its CX Next Generation Airlifter program. However, it's in its infancy, and completion of this program is probably decades away, which means that the C-130 will be in the skies for a long time to come yet, at least to the middle of the 21st century, 100 or so years after it was first introduced. But planes aren't the only old platforms that the United States Armed Forces still use in the skies. There are some old helicopters too. To supplement the airlift fleet led by the Hercules, there is the CH-47 Chinook. This helicopter is over 60 years old, having first been introduced in 1962. The Chinook began development in 1957 as a project to replace the Sikorsky CH-37 Mojave. The helicopter quickly proved its mettle in Vietnam, where it was well adapted to supplying troops in a treacherous jungle environment. There, it could fly over the battlefield, deliver troops, artillery, and other heavy equipment to hotspots, and get out quickly. With a top speed of 170 knots, about 200 miles per hour, and a cruise speed of 160 knots, it's still one of the fastest helicopters in the fleet despite its size. The tandem motors make it a more mobile aircraft than its competitors too, and above all, the Chinook is really good at lifting heavy payloads in extreme conditions. It can carry up to 26,000 pounds at sea level. At high altitudes at 5,000 feet, the Chinook can still carry as much as 22,000 pounds, even in temperatures close to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. This is why the Chinook proved so valuable in America's military operations in Afghanistan. The high mountainous terrain did not stop the Chinook from getting the payloads that the troops required right where they needed them to be. As for the troops themselves, the Chinook can carry 55 fully equipped soldiers or Marines and place these heavily armed warriors into whatever hotspot they need to be in. And there's a good chance that this aircraft will reach the century mark. The Army is eyeing a replacement for the Chinook with its Future Vertical Lift program. However, this program is also still in its infancy, and the UH-60 Black Hawk is the first helicopter set to be replaced by whatever product it produces. With continued upgrades, the Chinook might still be taking to the skies into the 2060s and beyond, meaning that it will likely reach the century mark at least. Many of the weapons and platforms in the United States Armed Forces show that newer doesn't necessarily mean better. These old systems still get the job done on the modern battlefield, and the popularity of some of them abroad indicate that even when the United States stops using them, they will still be a presence in the world's hotspots late into the 21st century, maybe even beyond. What do you think about these weapons and other systems? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more military analysis from military experts.